Hey, welcome to Better Podcast. Tonight we have on a wonderful guest, Gedale Fenster. We're going to get to him in a few minutes. Incredible person. I am your host, M. Gary Neuman. I'm a psychotherapist with my wise and wonderful co-host and daughter, psychotherapist Esther Neuman. So, Esther, it's good to be back.
Good to be back. I'm excited. I'm excited to hear what Gedale has to say. And
yeah. He's remarkable. It's going to be, he's remarkable. So, but before we get to his whole spiritual piece, we always like to talk a little bit about some psychological thing we've been working on. So what is it that you've been noodling about? What have you been thinking about?
Noodling. I love that word, noodling. Noodling is...
Noodling. I mean...
I actually want to go noodling once in my life. And
Okay. All right, everybody. Now we have to hear Esther is a multivariate person.
What the noodling is.
I just meant like you're thinking about. That's a term, but I guess to
me,
noodling
that means...
is something else. Go ahead, please. Educate us on what noodling means.
And you can look this up because it's true.
Okay.
It is going into a stream, and in the stream or river, you stick your hand into a catfish den in the mud, and the catfish grabs onto your hand, and you yank the catfish out, and you are literally fishing for catfish with your hands.
So you use your live appendage.
Yes, and you let the catfish bite your hand.
And then you pull it out.
And then you are noodling.
Wow.
Yes, I'm going to do that once in my life, I decided.
I see.
Gary,
so
you're going to come with me?
Yeah.
You're going to come in the cold, muddy river? And
I'm not going in the cold, muddy river.
Okay.
I'm not sticking my hand blindly into the mouths of fish or whatever you're talking. But I'm impressed and scared.
That's good. So you're my hand. We'll see if I lose a hand in the process.
I guess yes.
Hopefully not.
But
go back to tell us what you've been noodling around with your ideas. I think you meant it as an idea.
Yes, I have been noodling, but so caught me off guard there. I have the other day I was talking to somebody, and it's something resonated for somebody I was helping, and I think it's meaningful because it was a situation where, and we hear this sometimes, right, where a person says, I'm stuck in my marriage, like I can't get divorced because, it's going to hurt the kids or it's a problem or whatever. So this particular person gave me the opportunity to explain, in this case it was a female, to explain to her that, look, there's two ways of looking at a problem and making a decision. You can make a decision from a point of strength or from a point of weakness. And it could be the same exact decision, but so different. So I was explaining, like, for example, somebody feels like they're stuck in a marriage, right? I'm stuck. And I say, that's making the decision from a point of weakness. The truth is, you're not stuck. You could divorce, you could move on. Oh, you don't like that choice? Right. That choice is not as good as the choice of staying in the relationship? I respect that. But that means you're making a choice. You're not stuck. The difference, if you rewind those two differences, the person who's stuck is like, I'm miserable in my marriage. I'm going to stay in my marriage and be miserable. The person says, oh, you mean, yeah, you're right. I'm making a choice. I'm not stuck. I could do something else, but I'm making this choice. She now thinks, how do I make my marriage better? If I can't, how do I make it better for my children? How do I get some emotional connection that I may not be getting? How do I make my life better outside of this relationship if I need be? It's a whole different way of making the same decision, but what you do after that makes a very big difference.
Right. You shift your mindset. You're shifting your mindset. You're making a decision and shifting your mindset, and then seeing the good in the situation and figuring out how to solve it.
Yeah, it's
amazing.
I love that. It's hard to do. It's something we have to consider, not get and move forward with. Okay, excellent. We are going to bring in the great Gedale Fenster.
Let's go.
Hey, welcome to Better and Better Podcast, a live psychological podcast, and we have an incredible guest. We're just going to jump into it. Tonight's guest is Gedale Fenster. I am your host, M. Gary Neuman, psychotherapist, with my wise co-host and daughter, Esther Neuman. We're very proud to have Gedale with us. Now, I was on Gedale's podcast, and I learned a lot about him, but besides the fact that he has, daily inspiration, he has his own podcast, hundreds of thousands of listeners, like 1 million. He's unbelievable. Here's how I know that he is such a quality human being, because I can go out to dinner with a dear friend, a female who's in her 60s, and at the same dinner table, I can be with a male in his 30s. And when you mention Gedale Fenster,
They know him.
both of their eyes
Yeah.
light up,
Oh.
and they start going to their phones and think, "This is what he wrote." I mean, so you know that when somebody appeals to such a broad part of the population, that they're just real. You know, they're a real, genuine.
Yeah.
You know,
And he inspires
heartfelt
people, inspires beyond.
It's terrific, and at all spiritual levels. And I'm sure that he's very accepting and non-judgmental, because obviously everyone is so attracted to his message. But yet I've learned about him. He's to the point. He's not somebody who's just so poetic that you don't get the message.
Yeah,
So anyway,
practical understanding of things, and you frame it in such a beautiful way, in a different way. Yeah. So tell us, Gedale, can you give us, we call this optimism through challenge. So give us your ideas on how do we have optimism through challenging times.
Right. I mean, first of all, thank you for having me. I've been a follower of Gary for a while. I always remember the scene when you spoke about appreciating people who leave the stadium when they don't feel appreciated. I always love that line. I use that line a lot. The bottom line is the essence of my teachings are basically on a lot of it on Hasidus, Kabbalah, but very practical, bringing it down. And our sages tell us that the essence of knowledge is not that you know nothing. So at the end of the day, if you know nothing, and the more you know, the more you don't know, then you can sit there and be optimistic, because how do you know this is good or bad for you? So it allows you to let go. It allows you to surrender the moment. It allows you to be curious instead of judging it and saying, this is bad, this is good, this is bad. A lot of times things are amazing for us, but we're judging it the wrong way. So being optimistic is, number one, it's the exit strategy. Our sages tell us that through joy you will go out. That means through my attitude, I can actually change the outcome of an event, which is one thing. And second, most importantly, I don't get stuck in the wrong meaning of saying this is bad or this is good when it can be really good. So these are the two aspects really, really why it's important to have the appropriate attitude on these things.
So it's so deep what you're saying. Can you give us an example? I know that you've shared significant challenges that you've had in your life, and if you can walk us through how even at some of the worst issues in life, or some let's call them the hardest. I don't know how you would refer to them. How that practically plays itself out.
Right. I mean, I remember hitting rock bottom at 22, 23 years old, being involved in some kind of gambling, but that was actually my spiritual awakening. So Hasidus tells us that the problem becomes the solution in life. So whatever the problem is, the solution is right there with it. It's actually the problem is the solution. So our job is really, really to uncover it, and really realize that by realizing, going deep and realizing there's a much deeper message. And the problem that will actually come out much greater than before we even had the problem.
So how did that happen with the gambling? Like, where was the solution in the problem?
Because I realized the gambling led me to rock bottom and forced me to seek spirituality. And by seeking spirituality, I started getting into Rabbi Nachman's teachings. And by getting into Rabbi Nachman's teachings, it led me to my podcast. Now, let's say nothing would have happened in my life. I would have been an average guy in Miami Beach. Who knows? I would have gone. Who knows? I would have been desperate enough to search for Rabbi Nachman or to search for Hasidus. I probably wouldn't. I would be like every other guy in Miami Beach, living, in the coastline. So that problem forced me to say, "Hey, I need. There's got to be something better than this." So it put me in a almost a desperate situation of saying, "Hey, I got to do something with my life." This can't be
So the challenge you're saying is that it's going to lead you to an insight to change your lives. So I think, you're obviously naturally a spiritual and insightful person. How do you help people who are going through that space, instead of going down the anxiety, sadness, into that negativity? Right. How do you keep or help, or any guidance you have to keep people up on the top to say, hey, okay, wait, there's something better out there. This is going to lead me to spirituality, to joy, to something greater.
Mm-hmm. So first, there's this concept that I came up with called DBT, right? The first is the D. You have to dismiss the messenger, the person causing you. Like for example, we hear this in the Torah that the reason Paro is really the messenger to getting the Jews closer to God. It wasn't really him doing the damage. It was really, he was just a messenger. So I really focus on the D. The D is really, how do you get rid of the messenger, the person causing it, which is between you and me, it's the hardest part. If you can get and realize that the person is just a messenger in your life and getting you closer to God, or to getting you, to another step in your life. The Baal Sulam tells us that anytime you believe that somebody's imprisoning you, that's the biggest exile. Like anytime you believe that somebody else is exiling you, that is the biggest lack of faith. So first is dismiss the messenger. That could take a long time. Second part is believe it's for the best.
Believe it's for the best.
Believe it's for the best. That means the light from God is undifferentiated and it's always good. It's just we don't see it from our lens.
Okay, so I have to talk to you about that before you go there. And you can mention the third, we can come back, because so many people will say to me, that believe it's for the best. How do you convince someone? Someone says to you, God has it in it for me. Why does God do this again to me? Why doesn't he give me a break? I mean, these are the kinds of things that we hear and we believe. So, when you say to them, well, believe it's for the best for you, they say, oh, that sounds nice. How do you convince them of that?
The essence of the moon is that God created the world out of love. And sometimes he wants more for you than you want for yourself.
Okay.
You understand? Like I've always said, God has to sometimes break your heart to save your soul. So sometimes, let's say a person's in a codependent relationship, right? And they had in that relationship, they got verbally or physically abused by that person. And the real issue was that God's really curing them from their fear of abandonment as a child. Okay, but that person that came in that apparently abused them was really, really the messenger for them to get healed from their spiritual, from their past, from their inner child. So ultimately, if they don't go through that breakup and they don't go through that healing, they'll never get to the higher consciousness.
Okay, so you're saying dismiss the messenger, in this case, a person who's being unkind or provoking the anxiety or the abuse. Believe that whatever's going on here that's hurt you is somehow for your best.
It's for the greater good. It's for the greater good.
Okay, it's for the greater good. So greater good doesn't necessarily mean that it's making my personal life best in my mind for what I perceive as best. Is that correct?
It will be.
A lot of people get hung up on that. Like I decide that this is supposed to be my best and I'm not there. And you're saying, you think that's your best, but God might have a better plan for you and the way you fit into the world. Is that how you're seeing it?
Yes. The Baal Sulam tells us that we don't give diamonds to kids. We give them marbles. Okay? So according to your perspective in life, you get, you can only be given because otherwise you wouldn't appreciate it. You wouldn't appreciate if you got a lesson that could change your life. So many of us, again, we don't appreciate this, so God contracts to the level that we're at in our lives. But at the end of the day, every single challenge that I've gone through, the only way I've got out of it is by believing it's for the best. And God created the world out of love. He created the world out of love. The reason why we don't see it is obviously because our evil inclination blocks us from seeing that. But ultimately, every single challenge is for the best. It's look at October 7th. That could have brought major unity to us. That could have brought Mashiach. Even the worst of things at the end of the day could be the best of things if we handle it the right way.
Okay.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, it's amazing.
No.
I'm trying to know the T. Please show me the T already. I'm on pins and needles.
He's actually thanking God for it. Because one thing is
thanking God for
thanking God for that growth opportunity.
Wow.
Thanking God for that whole growth opportunity.
So it's gratitude even for the negative things that happen.
It's not negative. It's
the challenge.
It's not really. It's
the growth.
It's the bottom line is nobody's really waking up and say, how do I grow? So either you're making the growth, or most of the growth comes through desperation, not inspiration.
I see.
When we think it's like the Jews didn't want to leave Egypt. Paro was bringing them closer to God. A lot of these things that we go through is people have. I tell people, thank God we have so much numbers to deal with today. Thank God in New York we did, 3 conferences with 1,000 people, 700 people. So there's so much evidence that I have. And the number one question I ask people is this challenge bringing you closer to God? And they say yes. Okay, that's the answer to the question. You understand? Forget the details. The fact that you're closer to God is ultimately for the best. The rest
Why
is
do you
details.
think psychologically or spiritually? I mean, you're so right that it's being down and out that causes people
Right.
to grow, as opposed to when God feeds you good. Like what is that about the human condition, do you think?
Yeah, we have two. Our sages tell us we have two types of energies. We have energy of tohu, and we have an energy of tikkun. So the energy of tohu is like a chaotic energy. Okay, let me ask you a question. You watch football, Gary? You guys are into sports?
Sure. I mean,
We watch.
Why?
it's a little sore spot with the Dolphins right now, but go ahead.
Okay. So what is the team doing when they're down 7 points, and all of a sudden there's 2 minutes left in the game, and all of a sudden why are they scrambling now?
Right.
Why are you not playing that the whole game?
Absolutely.
Why are you not playing with a sense of urgency? So why is this energy at the last minute has to be this chaotic energy, and to get the touchdown? It's because when it looks like in our lives when we go through chaos, we perform better, and we're more focused. So
you think that's just the principle?
Right.
There's a two. Kabbalah tells us there's two states. There's tohu and there's tikkun. So there's stress and there's rest. Stress, rest. Stress, rest. And that's the story of our lives.
Sounds exhausting.
It seems exhausting, but at the end of the day, it's just like a stock. It has to go to a certain level. It has to bottom out. It has to take a breath, and it can't get it to a new high unless it takes a dip. So these concepts are already part of creation. These concepts are a part of creation. We're just fitting in. We're fitting into it.
Beautiful. How during that challenge or that dip, people get mad at God. People get mad at, yes, you said the messenger, was a very good point. You get mad at the physical representation of who is ever giving you that challenge. But how do you navigate that?
I mean, can you get mad at God when people say, are
you supposed to get mad at God?
Is it okay to get mad at God, or you're anti that?
If you could listen, I mean, as a rookie, you can get mad at God. But as you start as you start realizing at the end of the day, it's not. Remember, there's a pasuk, there's a verse that says, "I, God, do not change." So the light from God is always the same. Like, for example, Gary, if we're having a good day, if we're not having a good day, it has nothing to do with God. It has to do with what we're focusing on that day. How we woke up that day. It's really nothing to do with God. Your good mood or bad mood has nothing to do with God. It has to do with how you're perceiving that light in your life.
Right, for sure.
God's problem.
Right, we're all achdus, right? We're all one. So we feel Hashem wherever we are. I know that when there's something, I always wondered when you're standing at the kotel and you're feeling so much more spiritual, is it like, did God somehow put more spiritual energy there than the rest of the world? Or it's the same energy in this room. It's just that I am connecting to it. I'm feeling it more because I'm having the physical manifestation, the stories, and my perspective. Do you have a sense of that?
Yes. Reb Nachman speaks about that. When a certain place, whatever your thoughts are in that place. So people usually go there to the kotel and have very pure thoughts. So you're walking into that airspace. Just like you can walk into a synagogue, you feel inspired. In another synagogue, you feel flat. It has to do with the airspace of the people and of the energy in that synagogue.
Understood, but that's created by the people. God puts the same Shekhinah everywhere.
Exactly, but we create a certain amount of energy in certain places.
As far as connecting to it, creating it.
Your thoughts are energy.
Right.
Your thoughts are energy.
Right.
But to get to this level, like what we have to do, there's a lot. We speak about a concept called bodedut. Bodedut is talking to God.
Can you say it again? I'm sorry. A little louder.
Hit bodedut.
Right. Yeah, gotcha.
Which means right. So that's something. That's the tool that we use in order to get out of the messenger.
Explain that to people.
Bodedut is a personal conversation with you and God, where you discuss what's going on in your life and you ask them for help and you ask them for clarity. And just by speaking about it and just by letting out your emotions, it allows you to let go, and then insights start coming in.
Okay.
So again, the purpose of prayer is to get to higher consciousness.
And that takes a long time. I think, so often people feel like, okay, they're going to be spiritual or talk to God, and it's one good conversation. And then what do you know? 3 days later, they're still suffering. I mean,
Well, that
right?
is, free choice. And we feel sometimes we have power in our lives that, okay, if I do this, then something good will happen. And then I think people get frustrated when you keep trying and trying and trying and hit that wall. What do you make of that in terms of, okay, yes, we have our free choice, but then God is giving us challenges, whether we like it or not, to help us grow. But we do have choice. That's kind of it's an interesting space to be in. So what do you make of that?
So anytime that you're stuck in a situation, I'm sure Gary tells this to couples, but you have to create a new space. You have to create new space, a new beginning. Like everybody has to, remove themselves, back up, and then create a new space, create a symptom, contract yourself so you can create a new reality. You can't fight the problem with the head. You have to take a step back in order to recreate. So sometimes when we're heading the wall, forcing us to change our approach or change our way of doing things.
Interesting. Tell me, I know you're willing to share, and you've shared with your listeners. You had a very sad reality with a loss in your family. Can you tell us, share that with us, if you can, and again, what it did to you, your family, and how you. I don't know that you moved through it, but what your journey has been.
Right. This happened around 3 years ago. My son originally was diagnosed with cancer when he was 6, and then he relapsed at 12, and he passed away at 15, or 14, 15. So again, it was a very, very, very difficult, very painful thing. And the way I looked at it is, listen, he had a mission to come into this world. He had a very pure child, and if we learn the concept of Gilgulim, that we all have a certain mission for a certain amount of time, and the time's up. The mission's over. For example, Rabbi Nachman died at 38. He didn't die because he was meant to die. He died because there was nothing left for him to do in the world. There's many people that have very small missions, and they come to this mission to do it. So that gave me a lot of closure. That there's a certain mission that he had, and I was able to let go. It took me a while to let go. We have to go through the grieving, the feeling, and the healing. But ultimately, I was able to let go. And then at the end of the day, I said, what do I want to do? Do I want to, be depressed, or I want to do things in his name? So obviously, I chose to do things in his name. But that it's one of the hardest things in the world to go through.
Right. So I mean, it's beautiful, and I appreciate you sharing it. I'm only discussing it more just so I can understand it for others. Take me back to the period where you're saying I was sad, I grieved, and then I did, it's that part that, how sad do you get while saying, God help me, or God, I understand, or is there confusion in there? Like, just, I know that's a protracted amount of time, and it takes hard work as a human being.
It takes hard work.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I was, the thing is, I was still giving the classes. I was very deep into my teachings. So that helped me go through it. There's no question. Rabbi Nachman lost children, Rav Kook lost children. So the teachers that I was listening to, they also had similar experiences. And so, I pretty much learned from them how to do it.
So how do people do you say to people, someone else who has that challenge, God forbid, or another, do you say to them, let yourself cry, let yourself be down, be depressed, don't be depressed? I mean, I'm not suggesting it's a one size fits all, but
Right. The worst thing is to stop the feeling. Just feel it. Let it feel it. Don't resist. Don't resist what you feel. Whatever you feel it. Wherever you're at, feel it. Obviously, time also heals. Time heals. It's much easier now than obviously 2 years ago. I can't tell you I would have given you the same answer.
Right.
But time heals, and little by little, by just grieving and then feeling, and then the healing. So it took 3 steps: grieving, feeling, and healing. And I'm going through the grief, but knowing that he was in a better place at the end of the day, knowing that he's in a better place, and knowing that I did exactly what I could do, to basically, you get to a point where you did everything, and then at the end of the day, it's up to God to deal with that.
And as far as different people in one family healing or going through it at different stages? Like how do you handle that? I mean, you were the father, you have other children, you have your spouse,
Sure.
parents. I don't. I mean,
That's,
many people
that's
who are
another
grieving
reason.
around
That's
you.
another reason. Right. That's another reason why you can't fall apart either, because you have others to take care of also. You know.
Yeah.
And does that help in some form to be supportive of others?
Oh, the only thing that really got me through it was the teachings that I was teaching, and having these experiences with other people and learning about the concept of reincarnation, and learning on how not to resist. And at the end of the day, you just have to let it go. It's the same way as any loss. And again, Rab Nachman says that death is like going from one room to another room. So we have a different attachment to death. You get what I mean? We have a completely different attachment to death. These sages had a completely different attachment to death. The soul is eternal. It's just the body. But you got to be on a very high level to get there, obviously. So that did help me get through these times. And I've been able to help other people who've had children that have passed. I've been able to help people and give them that comfort.
Yeah. Yeah, we've actually looked into. I mean, we've studied and looked into, NDEs, near-death experiences.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so much science. There's even a book after by a psychiatrist, a very legitimate, researcher and psychiatrist. Yeah. So much more science, hinting or clarifying to things well beyond this experience, right, that we're so concrete, because we need to be. I mean, it's interesting to look at us. As I explain to people, is that I look like I'm solid matter to you, but scientifically I'm not. I'm 99.9% vacuous space. Isn't that something? Just when I thought I was invisible, I really am invisible sometimes, apparently. But nonetheless, when you start to say, "Oh, but my brain is filtering so that," because God allowed me to have some consistency in this world, but don't get too into it, because don't get too caught up in it, because it's really not so real, and God really is managing all this. And when we pass, it's not nearly the negative or sadness that we approach to it, but we're supposed to.
I mean, people are very. I mean, death is what drives a lot of us, in many ways, and that's what they say.
Point. That's a great point. Like it's the hitting rock bottom of death that causes a lot of us to live in life and accomplish.
Or actually, it's interesting. Our American culture is one of the only cultures that doesn't believe in reincarnation. A lot of outside of America. Even Western culture,
Western medicine, those things do.
Yeah, that there is. I think that tapping into that spirituality and that they're past lives, and that we don't really, what we see is not exactly what is happening around us. So I think that's a magnificent point to get to that place to say, wait, this is beyond me and what's going on right now and things I can't see, because I think it creates tremendous fear when we can't see what's going on, we don't understand. So to your point, you have to get to that other level, and you have to go through the grieving and go through the stages in order to get there.
Yeah.
But it's very hard to do.
Another secular book by David Hawkins called Letting Go. That also helped me a lot. Letting It Go by David Hawkins.
Letting Go.
He really excellent book, Letting It Go on anything. Just realizing that things need energy to live. So as long as the only way things can live is if you give it energy.
Interesting. Do you get to a point of, do you get to that ultimate T of thankfulness in those worst of times? I mean, thankfulness that the child, that you knew the child. I mean, obviously not thankfulness that they had to, there's any suffering.
I think I said to God, thank you for allowing me to deal with the grief properly. I don't know if I said thank you for taking him away, but I thanked him for letting me deal with the grief and not falling apart. But other things, if it's money matters, if it's other things, it's definitely a gratitude.
Well, it's finding gratitude. I think what it seems I was just saying is that finding gratitude in any of it, anything you can find gratitude for. Let's put it into play. That gratitude does create.
Right.
Yeah,
there's two things that they say that's connected to the world to come. It's the gratitude for Korban Todah, the gratitude offering, and the second one is believing everything is happening for you. So these two things are very connected to. Rav Nachman says that believing that everything's happening for you is a taste of the world to come.
Before you like Gamzul Tova idea?
Yeah, it's the concept of that when you see Yud Kei Vav Kei and Elohim, when you see God's hiddenness and revealed at the same time, if you see it all as one, it's a taste of the world to come. So we can actually draw the future into the present moment, the future into the present moment.
With gratitude and feeling that.
With gratitude and believing everything's for the world, believing everything's for the best, believing everything is happening for you.
Right. I want to tell you, the last time I was in Israel with my wife, and right in June or whatever, and we went to Shari Tzedek, and we went with shout out to Nikki Salfer, because she goes every Erev Shabbos, she gives candies. We went with her and gave candies, and we're on the cancer ward, of these little kids,
Mm-hmm.
And this blew my mind. There was these amazing women that go every Friday. And the hair and the big turbans, they all and they all have instruments. One's playing the violin, and one's schlepping a harp and flute and whatever. And they go from room to room, and they give a little live concert for these kids with cancer and their families. It's unbelievable. And then they hand out a laminated tefillah, a laminated prayer, and they gave one to me, and I look at it. So what would you expect that prayer to be? Shir Malas Mimam Akim, God, please from the depth, refuah, whatever. It was the prayer of Todah, all about thankfulness. And it blew my mind. I got to tell you, Dalia, it was incredible to me. The insight, like you're saying, that at that moment,
right, at the most challenging moment of someone's life, that
they're giving out a prayer about thankfulness. And I have lots of these now. And,
yes, I have one.
She has one, and I try to look at it. I try to look at it daily. I don't say it daily, but I try to at least look at it and say it. I was saying it, it's remarkable. And of course, it's thank you for, everything, for my body, for everything, also for the bad times, so I know what the good times are, et cetera, and onward. But it's got to be something, remarkable, that even in times of that, to turn people on to be able to have some form of gratitude and reaching out to God, holding on, holding on to your life.
The whole thing is you don't know anything anyway. You understand? Whatever you know, you realize you don't know nothing. That means as you learn, you realize that things that you thought were bad were actually the best things that happened. So when you go through life experiences and you see blessings, things that look like curses became blessings, you could realize, hey, just like the past, it's the same thing as the future.
So on that note, how much does ego get in the way of regrouping, making the right moves spiritually, cutting our losses?
100%.
Tell me what your advice
100%,
is as a spiritual advisor. How do you, what do you have to say to people about that?
What the ego does is it blocks your perspective, and it makes you self-centered. So how could you say thank you if you're self-centered? So the bigger the ego, the lower the self-esteem. Right. The bigger our ego.
That's true. People. What you just said is a psychological principle that people don't understand. Right. The bigger the ego, the lower the self-esteem. Everybody thinks it's the opposite. The narcissist has a tiny little ego. That's why they have to be themselves and be right and be the biggest personality in the room. You know what I mean? Everyone always thinks, oh, that person's got an ego the size of Kansas. No, it's the opposite. You make a very important, a psychological point in addition to spiritual point. So that ego gets in the way.
Yeah, because it blocks your perspective and makes you focus on yourself. Where humility is the opposite. Humility is not thinking less of yourself, but thinking of yourself less. Realizing there's something greater going on. There's something much greater going on in the world, in the universe. So you can see a bigger picture. First is, it's all about me. It's all about me. It's all about me. You can't help somebody who's all day long, self-centered all day long. Well, it's all about me. And this is where Kabbalah tells us, our sages tell us, that our biggest challenge is to go from a receiver to a giver. We're coming in here in this world to transform, because we're all born to be receivers, and we have to transform receivers to givers. We have to transform from being a receiver to a giver.
Because you're saying how you can grow. Because if it's all about you and you're just taking, then you can't reach those higher levels. I learned some Nasan, the word give in Hebrew is a palindrome. And for all of us who missed
palindrome, what's a palindrome?
Who missed fourth grade grammar, palindrome is a word spelled the same forward as it is backwards.
Well done.
So thank you.
Nice.
Thank you. It was a hard concept.
So
But-
Nasan is
So
a
that's
palindrome.
give. It is a
Oh.
palindrome. So when you give, you're giving back to yourself in some way. So I think to that point.
But giving is also giving is not just physically giving. Giving is also believing is giving, because the ego, you can't. Your brain is so rational. I need to rationalize everything. I need to understand everything. So believe it or not, giving is also having faith. When I have faith, I'm actually giving, because now I'm not into my ego and my rationality and I need to understand everything. So you actually become a giver when you overcome anytime you overcome your basic natural tendencies, you become a giver. So it doesn't just involve giving gifts; it involves going against your nature.
Because your nature is to hold back, build yourself, receive.
Rationalize.
I see. Yeah, it is amazing that
even in a trial, for example, if you're in a trial, you're in a hard situation, and your natural tendency to be sad and worry. So when you're optimistic, you're actually breaking your nature. You're becoming a giver.
I see. How are you becoming a giver by that?
Because you're overcoming you're overcoming your rationalization of that this is bad. That's your baseline.
And how does that mean? And if you're optimistic, how is that giving?
It's giving because you're giving your creator the benefit of the doubt. You're overcoming your rational mind.
I see.
Anything
so you're
that
giving to God.
difficult.
You're giving to your godliness. You're giving
For
to your
example,
spiritual.
Gary, if I told you, Gary, that when you fast, you're actually giving to your body. Is that true or not?
If you fast, you're giving to your body, right?
Fast.
Okay. So why is that? The rationale would be no. Right, you're withholding from your body. So why is it that you're giving to your body?
Why is because you're finally giving your liver a break. You're letting your organs settle. You're letting your body cleanse. So you're actually giving to your body. When you overeat, you're not giving to your body. You're taking away from your body.
I see. So we just have to be astute enough to see that in life with God in our situation.
Right.
But sometimes it's obvious to us as incorrect.
It's always the brain that got you into the problem is not the brain that's going to get you. that I guarantee you.
Your brain's not the answer. Darn it. Skip over the brain.
That's why we need therapists. We need therapists.
Thank goodness we need therapists. Thank goodness.
We're so egocentric. We're so in the problem that we need a therapist to tell you, hey, you're not looking at it the right way. You're not seeing it the right way.
Yeah.
We're so in the problem.
That's true. The well-known Gemara where he heals people, but they say when he's sick, they say, "Well, what do you need us to heal you for?" And he says, "Because the prisoner can't let himself out of jail. Once we're once we're in it, we can't do it." And it's very hard. Listen, people always say to me, "I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do," and I always say to myself, "Okay, look, if your best friend had the same situation, what would you tell him to do?" "Oh, I tell him to do this and that." "Oh, yeah. Okay, so you know exactly what to do."
You're just not going to do it.
You're just not going to do it. It's just hard for you to take it on yourself because you're so rational in your head and you're taking it so personally. And I also think that the ego...
We're too personal. Correct. We take it way too personal.
Right. Sometimes I feel like some people have like kind of laws of attraction in the sense of like, okay, you don't know how to solve this. And then one negative thing happens and one negative thing. And then it kind of is like a snowball effect from there. Do you find that to be true because you're projecting out this sense of negativity or this ego or whatever, or do you find that to be the case?
Well, in Kabbalah, it's called a good mood and a bad mood, right? A good mood is you're an expanded consciousness. When you're in an expanded consciousness, you have the name of Kel and Chesed. You have a different name of God. When you're in a bad mode, in a constricted consciousness, then you are focusing on the name of Elohim, which is judgment, which is din, din. So you basically you're not even, there's no kindness can't come your way because you're in a state of judgment.
Interesting. So that's true. So if you're in this mood,
absolutely,
yes,
yeah,
yes. The answer is yeah. If you're in that mood, then more negative is going to happen. So it is very important to shift out of that mindset or that mood.
You're focusing on din. You're focusing on the din. You're not seeing the chesed.
Interesting. Wonderful.
Okay.
Okay, listen, we're going to end soon. I know you have time. We value your time. I just want to get in a question or
no
two
problem.
that people sent us since we weren't able to do live questions tonight. We want to, of course, we'd
Absolutely.
love to have you back when we could do that. Here's one question that came to us. I have some physical issues and I've had them all my life. I just learned my condition has affected my ability to have children, not be able to have children. She's 31. She's engaged. I would understand if my boyfriend would not want to marry me. He's been so supportive of my issues, but this could be too much for him. I feel like a failure. I'm lost. And why would anybody be with me? I don't want a man who doesn't want to have children. Adopting is a possibility, but I'd understand someone not wanting that. How do I go on and not feel God has it out for me?
Right. I heard I recently had an interview with Rabbi David Grigler that, and he quoted the Alter Rebbe that when people were sometimes you're going through a test. It doesn't mean that you're getting punished. At the end of the day, we're very confused about what a test is and what punishment is. How many times have doctors misdiagnosed people? My mother, she couldn't have kids for 20 years. And she adopted a child out of Jafco. She got pregnant. Okay.
Wow.
So don't first of all, what I would tell her is it's obviously it's very hard, but you cannot attract miracles in a victim mindset. So right away, you have to find a way to get out of the victim mindset. And I would tell her to read Rabbi Rush's book, Say Thank You and See Miracles.
Say thank you and see miracles?
See miracles, yeah. There's 198 stories of people that had very similar issues, cancers that went away.
Okay, beautiful.
And by them saying thank you and building, things went away. And we know many times have seen many conditions of just disappear. So I would tell her to read the book, Say Thank You and See Miracles, practice the advice in the book, and Ezrat Hashem, she should have a miracle.
Amen. Okay.
It's an interesting point. I read something recently that when you express gratitude about like 15 minutes, 15 times a day, it actually creates antibodies, like in ill-fighting antibodies. Your body literally can fight illness better. And it was just wild how much the mind and body connection is there, and more that science is supporting that. Things we've already known through teachings, but now that science is back in there supporting it.
Incredible.
Okay, faith is parasympathetic, and fear is sympathetic, and parasympathetic is what's healing.
Remarkable. Last question, just how does someone, if they want to keep spiritually on a daily basis, what would you say would be a good start of a spiritual practice on a daily basis, mentally or reasonably, practically? Besides, of course, getting your inspirational messages every day. That's definitely where they should start.
Either listen to a podcast, read a certain amount of books a page, and do some kind of talking meditation every day. I could tell you right now, when I'm not reading, or I'm not, listening to my podcast, and I'm not, praying, I'm a different person. I'm a different person. I'm moody. I'm irritable. I don't see the things fit. So it's not like whether you can do anything to get yourself in a higher consciousness. And it could be meditating, some kind of prayer. I like his brother dudes. That has, depending on the kind of person you are. I'm a very emotional, passionate person, so I need to physically let it out. I need a hard workout. You get me? I can't do just yoga because I have a lot of energy. But some people are okay, doing something less lightly. But you really have to get to know yourself.
Okay.
You said talking meditation. As I used to talk about, like a prayer.
Yeah, his brother did.
God, have the actual conversation.
Right.
Just think it, like actually speak.
Say it. I think that's a very
about
beautiful.
Your problems, etc.
Right. It's a beautiful concept because it's like it's talking to God, is it?
And keeping it very real and present.
It's building the relationship with God and realizing that most importantly, you're talking to God, is you're realizing that the problem is coming from God. It's not coming from other places or other situations. And that usually solves the issue.
Amazing.
It usually solves the issue.
Amazing. Gedale, thank you very much.
If you ask me, what have I seen most people have breakthroughs? I have people on my podcast for 5 years, 4 years, 3 years. And I'm asking, hey, what led you to the breakthrough? And they would all tell me it's talking to God. When they started talking to God, that's what got them to the next stage.
Okay. Beautiful. So we're going to talk to God. Everyone out there. Everyone, let's start talking to God or continuing and talking more.
Beautiful.
Make it real. All right. Listen, thank you, Guy. Thank you so much for your time. We appreciate you.
My pleasure.
And if people want to get in touch, tell us quickly how they can get in touch with your podcast and your Instagram and everything.
They can go on Instagram, Spotify under my name, Gedale Fenster. Gedale.
Okay. We'll put it up there.
It's all over there.
Thank you very much. We can't.
Beautiful.
Thank you very much. Thanks for the delay. Sticking with us through the delay. Have a wonderful night. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you all for listening, and please tune in to Better and Better podcast for wonderful people we're having on coming up, and follow us on Instagram at mgaryneuman and Esther Neuman Therapist. We look forward to having you back.
Yes, and remember, as corny as this is going to be, we planned it out. This is the part we planned out. You're not going to believe it. But remember, when you get up tomorrow, just keep saying, I am always growing and I am feeling better.
And better.